Right, yes, hello, and welcome back to Free Vinyl Discovery. This week is an album from a band that I've already covered on the series, a band that means quite a lot to me, and I'm very excited to be talking today about The Crossing by Big Country, their big debut. Full disclosure, I already own this album on vinyl, but mine is blue. This one's green. It's also a very nice textured album, which my one is, but not quite in the same way as the green. The green just hits different somehow. I really like the fact that this is basically the same album that I already own, but with a twist. It looks slightly different, and I think having a different aesthetic really does contribute to my collection, and I'm very grateful to have it, especially since I do quite like this album. First of all, though, let's talk about the overall condition of this album. It's definitely had a good life compared to some that I've covered in this series. It's in very good condition indeed, in fact. I can't see anything out of the ordinary for an album this old. There's a slight little peeling here in the corner, but I'm only noticing that because I'm talking to you about it, so I'm not complaining. I'm really liking the sleeve. Apart from this, though, it's identical to the blue album that I have. There's no difference apart from that print. I don't know whether one is better than the other. I think perhaps it just comes down to taste. Personally, I prefer the look of the green album, but everything else is exactly the same, including the album itself. By the way, this one does play perfectly well. I love this album. I think as far as Big Country are concerned, this is the best album that I've heard of theirs. I've heard their first 3 albums, this being their debut, and it holds a very dear place in my heart. Every song by Big Country feels like a story. It's not necessarily something too personal to Stuart Adamson himself, but every song does feel like you're getting involved in some sort of narrative, and I really do like that in Big Country, and this album sets that precedent very well, opening up with In a Big Country, which is a really good song. It feels very proudly Scottish, and that's something that I think transcends every album by Big Country. They really do not shy away from the fact that they are Scottish, and they are going to tell you about it. But there's something very aspirational about that track, and I think that that's really fun. I really do sing along to that song every time I hear it. It's such a banger. It then goes on to Inwards, which is a classic rock track from them. Not one of my favourites on the album, but certainly worth a play. Then it goes over to Chance, which is really great. I think that that's a more melancholic song of theirs, but it's definitely worth a listen. I think that actually, based off of my commentary from listening to Steeltown, where Big Country really come into their own is their more melancholic tracks. That's my personal opinion. Their biggest tracks are probably the ones where they're hitting out a bit more rocky, such as In a Big Country, which I do also love. So, no complaints from me, eh? Then they plays out the A-side with 1,000 Stars and The Storm. The Storm in particular, I think is really good. It's a very atmospheric track. I very much enjoy that one too. The B-side opens up very strongly with Harvest Home and Lost Patrol. For me, those instrumentals really sell those tracks. You can really get immersed in them completely. I don't feel like the next 2 tracks really sell the album very well, but it ends with Poroman, which is their longest track by far on the album, but it earns its length, it swells, it builds, the lyrics are poignant, and that's Big Country all over for you. Whatever you think of their sound, I think their lyricism is consistently strong. I think even though this is probably their best sounding album, they don't really lose it when it comes to the lyricism. There's always a lot of thought that goes into a Big Country song, and I really respect them for that. This is definitely my favourite Big Country album though, by a mile. I would like to own The Seer one day. There are some good tracks on there, but I feel as though from those 3 albums you can definitely see a dip in terms of musical quality. This one brought Big Country out in a massive way, and I'm very grateful for it. I've talked a lot in my career across this channel and on Williams Schmilliams about the album listening experience. Once upon a time I was not an album listener. I just listened to all the big hits of an artist, just listening to the songs that I knew. But since getting involved in albums, I've been really big on the album listening experience and about there being a good flow, about an album being consistent in the right ways and changing it up where necessary. The Crossing definitely does that, and it gets a big recommendation from me. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next week.